Hey, this is Jared with eCarrierCheck, and I got Michael Padone on with me today. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited that you're on, mainly because I've been following you. I love what you do in the sales world. And I think this is really relevant for people that are picking up the phone and trying to have conversations with people. Michael, tell us about your background, how long you've been doing sales training, what you specialize in, those aspects.
Sure. So I've been a straight commission sales rep for just about my entire adult working life, right? So basically, whether it's cold call or warm call, most people don't know the difference there. But the cold call is contacting any prospect that is not currently raising their hand. Contrary to popular belief, a warm call is when somebody does raise their hand, right? So the only reason why I'm bringing that up is too many times people think that warm calling is you send them an email, then call them. That's not a warm call, right? So, but whether it's a cold call or warm call, whether you have an inbound hot lead coming in, or whether you have to make an outbound call, I show people how to sell by phone. You know, what to say after "hello, my name is," get the conversation going, and then what to do after that. And it's a really simple step-by-step process. It definitely covers the basics, and I find that most salespeople who aren't hitting quota, it's because they don't have the basics down. And this is a quick, easy way to fix that problem.
That's awesome. So, Michael, obviously I work with a lot of people that may not be experienced in picking up the phone. Give us kind of a one or two punch, what should they be saying, or how do they're experts in their field, but how do they approach this process or problem even in their world?
Yeah, well, the first thing is this. Are you referring to like a lot of them? Are they like small business owners, right? Maybe they were really good in the industry. No, okay.
Yeah. So normally what I'm seeing are drivers have a hard time picking up the phone and making relationships with new shippers.
Okay.
Dispatchers struggle with talking to carriers and maybe talking to them and saying, "Hey, I need to bring you on as a client," sort of thing. So a lot of people just have a hard time picking up the phone. And what do they say when they get on the phone with somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is the best thing I could say is go deep, not wide, with the people or the outreach that they want to do. What do I mean by that is find who your target audience is. Too many times we don't want one deal to fall through, especially if we're trying to grow our business. We want anybody and everybody, and that's not always the best case. So you want to find your lane, no pun intended, and stick right to it. Right. And really find that sweet spot of who your target audience is, and then make a list of them. A lot of times what I say is this: if you want to go bass fishing, you can't go to Salt Lake and fish in that lake and expect to catch anything, because there's not going to be any bass in there. Right. So you definitely want to find your lane. You find the type of prospects you want to go after, the ones that are going to convert the quickest, to pay you the best, be a good client, not a pain in the ass, all that stuff. You want to find those characteristics of that have the characteristics that you're going to specialize in. Build that list up. That's the first thing. Okay. So that's where it all starts. Okay. The second thing is this: before you pick up the phone, a lot of times you're going to be nervous, things of that nature. Always start with a mindset. And if you have to say it out loud to yourself, then go ahead and do it. Just go, let me just see if I can call and help this person. So that's the mindset that you have to have. Not let me call and see if I can set an appointment. Let me call and see if I can close them. Let me see if I can get them on board. You're putting way too much pressure on yourself before you start the process. So the first thing is this: start with the mindset. Let me just see if I can call and help them. Okay, now if you want to call and help them, how are you going to do that? How are you going to get them to the point of them not knowing who you are, that you interrupting their day, and you contacting them right in the beginning, to them wanting to have a conversation with you? How do you bridge that gap? Because that's really where it's at, right? Before you can see you can help them, right? If you're going to be able to help them, you're going to have to uncover some problems that they might be having that they might not even know that they're having, correct?
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're helping, so you have to find the problem first before you can help them. Okay. Well, how do I do that? Right. So if my goal is to see if I can help them, but to see if I can help them, I got to see if there's a problem first. Well, what's the step that happens before seeing if there's a problem? Well, they're going to have to be willing to take your call, right? So what happens between the call and the problem is, well, before I get to the problem, I'm going to have to ask them some questions. Okay, well, I just can't call and start asking them questions right out of the gate. So what do I have to do? So now you just keep breaking things backwards. So I want to see if I can help. Got to see if there's problems. Going to have to ask questions. Okay, well, how do I get to the question stage? Okay, well, I want to see if I can help. It's going to have to be my opening value statement. What I say after "hello, my name is going to have to pique their interest so much to the point where they're going to go, okay, sure, I got a second. And now you've captured their interest, and now they're willing to have a conversation with you. And now you could ask a couple of questions that you're going to have to learn to write them out, and what questions to ask, before that. But once you get to that stage, now you just have to ask the right questions. And then based on those answers, you'll both be able to see if there's a problem that exists. And next thing you know, you're having a sales conversation. And then you can move into the problem, identifying the problem, and then talk about your solution. It really is that easy. It's just that you have to master each little step, in that process. But that's the easiest formula there is. Start with know who your list is, know what the goals are, work it backwards, and then, okay, now I'm going to move it this way.
I love what you say about creating a value statement, Michael. Obviously, there's a lot of those, that will probably just freeze. Hey, my name is Jared, and they don't know what to say. Can you give me some examples of a value statement, or
sure.
just something in that world?
Yeah, sure. So we can do two of them. One, I'll do one for my industry, then I'll ask you a couple of questions about your target audience, and I'll put one out there. Also, I have a free course on how to create your own opening value statement. So anybody listening, just go to the website and sign up for the free course. I mean, it'll take them about 29 minutes to go through it, right? It's designed to be done within a lunch period, but by the time that's done, you'll be able to you'll know every aspect of it, and you'll be able to custom create your own and use it. But let me explain what not to do first. Let me give you a bad example, right? Calling up out of the blue, hey Jared, this is Michael with ABC. Listen, do you have 27 seconds to hear why I'm calling? Right? That's horrible. Don't use any of those stupid tactics that you're going to read on LinkedIn or all these other sales blog posts from content writers, from people that never actually picked up the phone before. The reason why something like that doesn't work is, even if they did say yes, it just forced you to do a data dump in those 27 seconds. And you didn't get a chance to ask them any questions, to uncover any problems. You're just going to be forced to do a solution. They're probably going to say, we already have something that covers that, or just send me some information. The call's going to end. You're going to think you have pipeline. You're going to chase them for a while, and it's not going to come to fruition. You're going to get burned out very quick, and you're not going to have enough money to keep the lights on. So what would you do instead? Let me give you an example in my industry, like I said. So if I'm going ahead and I'm going to be calling somebody, and it's they're in my audience, right? I know that they're a sales director, or they're a small business owner, or whatever. I know they have a sales team of anywhere from, usually anywhere from 5 to 50, right? I'll contact them and go, hi, this is Michael Pedone at salesbuzz.com. The reason for my call, I specialize in helping outbound sales teams overcome call reluctance. And if I caught you at a good time, I'd like to ask you a few questions just to see if what we have to offer maybe some help to you. Would that be okay? Now, 9 times out of 10, even if their knee-jerk reaction was to say no, they can't, because they know if they have 5 or more sales reps, half of them is suffering from call reluctance. They're not making their dials, right? So they're going to go, that no would choke in their throat. They're almost like, okay, sure, I got a second, go ahead. And so I piqued interest first and gained permission second, right? One of the old ways too of selling is to try to take control of the prospect right away by asking them a question without gaining permission. And I don't like to do that, because when you do it that way, sure, you might ask them, hey, how are you handling this? And then they'll give you an answer, but you can tell it's that guarded answer. It's those short one-word answers. It's like you're pulling a donkey uphill, right? I much rather pique their interest so much in the first few seconds and then gain permission that they go, yeah, sure, I got a second, go ahead. Guard goes down, ears go up, and now I'm able to ask what I call my engagement qualifying questions, and then we get to problem recognition.
Nice. I love that. I absolutely love that. So can we try one out in our industry?
So the question, so if I was if one of your people were hiring me, right? Like they're starting their business and they want to hire salespeople, and they decide to hire me, one of the first questions I'm going to ask them is, what pain points or problems does your prospect have to have in order for them to be interested in what we have to offer? So every business is only in business because they created a solution that solves a problem. So I would ask them, why would a carrier go with you rather than the other 10,000 that are out there? What is it about you that is special? What problems are you solving? So I would have to ask you that first in order to create an opening value statement. So what would you say the answer might be?
Yeah, I mean, in our particular case, if you're thinking from a driver standpoint, usually these guys, there's 1 or 2 drivers in a truck, and the pain point that they're solving is they're going to give capacity to a shipper essentially in a particular location. So, hey, every Thursday I'm going to be in Columbus, Ohio with a 53-foot van trailer, right?
Okay.
So
right.
the one thing with being a driver with a limited amount of trucks, maybe they're owner operators or they only have 2 or 3, is, it's sometimes easier for a shipper to use a freight broker or somebody just a little bit bigger. So that's the one thing that I want to try to understand is, how does the little guy still provide value? And that's what I'd like to understand from you, or what would you recommend to them?
So one of the things is reliability in that area. So from in that example you just gave me, if that one person is going to be every Thursday in that area and have this much room, right? Then if that's like their route or whatever that they're doing, they can be rely on that. So now it's going to be like they don't have to look at for somebody else and try to get that. It's going to be reliable. It's going to be like clockwork. I'm there all the time. So now the carrier's going to have to, or the driver's going to have to build a list of people in that area that they know they're going to be at, that does shipping regularly and that could use the space that they have. And so now they'd have to create an opening value statement. Again, something along the lines of do the introduction. Hi, my name is so-and-so from XYZ. The reason for my call, specialize in helping. And then I would mention the type of industry that they're calling. So give me an example of an industry that they would be calling on.
Like plastics.
Okay. So we specialize in helping plastics move their shipments more reliably and so let's just do this again. They do plastics. How much space do they normally take up?
The full truckload, 53 foot.
I was gonna say, is it LTLs too, or?
No, it'll be full truckload mostly.
Okay, and so this is where we would have to find out what is the value of that full truckload. So, so the reason for my call is we specialize in full truckloads. It's more reliable and dependable than some of the bigger carriers that you have. And if I caught you at a good time, I'd like to ask you a few questions, just see if what we have to offer might be some help to you down the road. Would that be okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And then they go, well, we're pretty set for right now. Well, that's okay. I'm not asking you to switch carriers right now. I just wanted to ask you a few questions to see if you ever get in a pinch where whatever your reliable trucks that you have aren't so reliable anymore. If you have a backup, I want to see if I could be that person for you. But I would just need to ask you a few questions first. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, okay, you're right. Because you want to be prepared for the no, we're all set right now, right? So if you pique interest a lot of times, and once you get your opening value statement down, like 90% of the time, 80 to 90% of the time, they should say, yeah, okay, I got a second. But you still want to be covered for that 20% that they say no. And go, listen, I'm not asking you to switch right now. I just want to ask you a few questions, see if I could be help you in case you get into an emergency situation, since I'm in that area all the time. I just need to ask you a few questions. Would that be okay? That usually drops their guard, piques their ears, and then now you can move forward in that aspect. And by the way, if you're using an opening value statement and it's failing 80% of the time, not working 80% of the time, it's one of three things. You're either calling the wrong type of prospects, you're not saying the right thing, or what you're saying is you're not saying it the right way. Some people say it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's actually what you say and how you say it. So those are the three areas that you can measure once you create your script, you create your list, and you start working on it. And if it's not working after you, I say get at least 50 to 100 at bats in there, and then do the stats. If it's not working to you, at least 50% of the time, then you got to look at some of those other areas.
Yeah, nice. I think something that I hear from a lot of people is they struggle sounding confident on the phone. I think it's important that you're not kind of monotone, but how do you express confidence over the phone in that regard?
Right. So it's by being prepared ahead of time of what to say. That's why I had to ask you some of those questions, and those might not have been the exact final opening value statement. Right? We're creating something on the fly to give an example. But once you work it and you try a couple of them and you fine tune it, then you know what to say before they ever pick up the phone, right? You're dialing, you know exactly what you're going to say. There's no more, you're not worried anymore, right? So that you're going to have that confidence in there. So again, when you also go, I'm just calling to see if I can help them. When you're in that mindset, that takes care of a lot of it. I'm just calling to see if I can help. It also helps with the rejection, because if you try to call and sell them, like that's your intent, and they reject you, you take that more personally. Where like if you're calling to see if they can help and they still reject you, like, okay, they rejected the help, they didn't reject me. Right. So that helps. That's another little tidbit to help you with keeping you in the game mentally. Right. Yeah. But when you go ahead and you're calling to help and you know already what you're going to say before you even pick up the phone on if they answer, that's going to help you tremendously. And as long as you're following the right formula and you do it enough, you're going to see success with it. The next thing is this you have to be prepared for, though, is okay, well, when you call, you could get you're not always going to speak to the person that you need to speak to. It could, one, you can get voicemail, or you can get what we would label as a gatekeeper, right? So you have to know what to say. Okay, if I get, these are plays, these are strategies, these are scripts, right? But it's not the old style script where you read from start to finish. It's a strategy book. Okay, if I call and the gatekeeper answers, I'm going to say this. If I get voicemail, I say this. And if I get the prospect, I say this. And then once you master that stuff down, it's again, call reluctance isn't an issue.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
from a gatekeeper standpoint, have you found one thing that works best in that world, or is there something that just, be friendly and tell them you're there to help? What seems to be the best from a gatekeeper standpoint?
No, all the tips and tactics, they teach you, try to schmooze the gatekeeper. I mean, you have to be really good. First of all, gatekeepers, I mean, after 1 week of being on the phones, like they pretty much heard it all, right? So they get to be really experienced at that stuff. And so you have to be really, really good to be able to, if you want to like schmooze and the gatekeeper, I'm like, the majority of salespeople you're going to hire aren't going to have that high level of personality to be able to make that happen. So why even bother? Right? Leave that for the 1% that can do that. If you think about it logically, what does a gatekeeper need to know in order to make a decision if they should put your call through? If you approach it from that standpoint, you realize, well, they need to know who you are, what company you're with, and why the hell are you calling? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the three things. So, and so if you go, hey, this is so-and-so with Bob's Trucking, the reason for my call is I might be able to help so-and-so with some of their shipments next week, but I just need to ask them a few questions first to be sure. And you shut up and they'll go, okay, 1 second. Right. And they get, hey, somebody might be able to help you with some shipments you have next week. Hello. Hi, this is Bob with ABC Trucking. This is so I am the reason for my call. I might be able to help with some of your shippings next week. I just need to ask you a few questions first to be sure. Would that be okay? Well, which shippings are you talking about? Well, it depends what you have, right? So now you're into it. You just have that, right? And that could be an opening value statement too, right out of the gate. Just something that simple. Help you with some of your shipments next week or next month or whatever. And that's, if you look at it from that angle and that standpoint, what you said, the gatekeeper, it was above their pay grade to reject, right? If they were truly the gatekeeper, they're like, well, this is about a shipment next week regarding somebody trying to help. Unless that gatekeeper is really also like part owner and know that they can make that decision, right? But if they are, they'll just go, well, which shipments are you talking about? I might be able to help you with that, right? Then you just handle it from there, right? And you start off. But yeah, that's the real easy part. And I'd say the same thing on voicemail. Hey, I'm just calling. If you get voicemail, reason for my call, there's a possibility I might be able to help you with some shipments next week. I just need to ask you a few questions first for sure. To clarify a few things, can you give me a call? And that's it.
How about if you don't know who to ask for? What do you do when you don't know who to ask for?
So I guess I would have to ask you, there's a couple things. First of all, you never want to assume that the name that you have, that person's the decision maker. You don't ever want to assume that, even if they're the owner you're speaking to, because one, they could have a couple of partners, and maybe anything above a certain, price point, or maybe a certain shipload, whatever, they have to have buy-in if they're using a different carrier or something like that. It could be something crazy like that, right? You never want to, even if their title matches the person that you normally need to speak to, you never want to assume they're a decision maker, because of the fact that, well, one, if you assume it and then you go for a close, they could tell you, well, I got to check with so-and-so, and they're either lying or telling the truth, right? And if they're just using it as a lie, and you're like, well, I thought they were a decision maker, and you didn't clarify that early on, they got off the phone and now they got the fish swam away, right? They got off the hook. So you don't ever want to assume that going in. So what you want to do, you want to know who the titles generally are that you need to speak to. But that's where you start. You should always know the top 2 or 3 titles of the people you can start the conversation without assuming that they're the sole decision maker. But you should at least know that, hey, if it's depending on the size of your target audience, of how many shipments they do, how many employees, how many trucks, whatever it is that you're going to use for your metrics to determine if they're qualified prospects, you'll start to get to know the top 2 or 3 people who have what titles they have that make that final decision. Let me give you an example. If I'm calling a larger company, say they have 500 or more employees, I almost never speak to the CEO. It's always like a VP of sales or a sales director. If they have 20 employees, I'm almost always speaking to the owner. And even at that point, even if I get them on the phone, I don't assume that they're the decision maker. I know I can start with them. And once I pique their interest, gain permission to continue the call, ask a couple of my engagement questions, get problem recognition. And then before I move forward, I'm going to clarify their role in the decision-making process to make sure that if there's somebody else that needs to be involved before I go on to the next step. Right. And if they say, and then, so that's how I would handle that. With that being said, that's a long answer to your question. I don't know if in your industry, if the people they're reaching out to, or the companies they're reaching out to, are on LinkedIn. If they are, then, again, if they're like 50 or less employees, chances are you'll be able to look up and see who's the owner right then and there. I would hire an intern or outsource. I would go to upwork.com or something like that and say, hey, I need, or you could use things like uplead.com and what have you. But I would definitely find somebody that would just do that research real quick. They'll get that whole list. You give them the demographics you're looking for, and you have it in there, and you just be able to start making your dials that way.
Yeah, I love that. Realistically, how many dials should people be making, to churn, to finally get traction going? And how long are you seeing that it takes you start making calls every day from your truck? How many calls should they be making, and how long should it take to actually find somebody?
Well, these are short sales cycles that you guys have. Some people might have. Now, I guess the question, we're going to start at the end of that. So some of your clientele, are they going to have contracts that they have to use with some other people?
Some people do, yeah.
Oh, some people do. Okay, now you have to decide, is that your target audience?
Okay.
Right? Is that going to be the people that you want to invest a lot of your time with, because, and wait for that contract to come up and things of that nature. So
Sure.
those little things. So maybe you decide, okay, it's not the people that have contracts, that they can use whoever they want. You're going to start to build those characteristics, and you start to reach out to them, and what the pain points that you solve. When you get really good at what you say and the questions you ask, you could be getting new deals the same day, right? Depending on if you do enough dials. With that being said, would I expect it the same day? No, you got to build that pipeline, right? Okay, now how many dials should you be doing? Let's go back to your original question. It really depends. I want to say technically there's two answers, right? Because if they are an owner, I'm a business owner myself, okay?
Right.
We wear lots of hats.
Right.
Okay. So I could say on one side, technically there's only one right answer, and then technically on the other side, there's only two answers. So the one right answer that all salespeople should be going by 60 dials a day, 60 dials a day, and or 3 hours of talk time.
Yeah.
And the person that taught me this early on in my sales career, they actually said, listen, Padone, give me 3 hours of talk time. I don't care what you do with the other 5 hours of the day, right? Out of an 8-hour day. I'm like, okay, cool. So the thing is this, if you do 60 dials in a day, chances are you're going to have about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes of talk time. There are times where I've done 20 dials a day and I had 3.5 hours of talk time. Because it's just going to work that way, because when you're putting in the effort and you know what to say, you're going to get people on the phone. You're going to have longer conversations, meaning you're going to have less time to make those dials, right? Yeah. The problem is when you look at the stats and a sales rep's made 18 calls for the day or 28 calls for the day, but they only have 30 minutes of talk time. Like, what the hell do you do all day? Right? So with that being said, then they'll say, well, I did research. I'm like, no, you should be doing that before the day starts. Have your list ready to go, right? With that being said, if it's an owner, I know, speaking for myself, the odds of us doing $60 a day is going to be very minimal, right? It's just not going to happen. Right. So you're going to have to find something that works for you. What I can say, whether it's $10 a day or $20 a day, what I can say to you is do a call block and get disciplined at it. So whether it's 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, right? Do it before noon. That's all I would say. And go, there's a good rule out there, 10 dials before 10 p.m. before 10 a.m., right? 10 before 10, you could do that and just get consistent with it every day. And if that's all you could do as a business owner, you're a one-man show, whatever, but you're doing at least 10 dials a day, before 10 a.m., you'll be doing okay.
Yeah, I love that. How long does a typical pipeline start spitting stuff out in some cases? Are you seeing, if you make 10 calls a day, 5 days a week, for 2 weeks, do you think you'll have traction at that point?
So you have to go off of, did you build a quality list, and how good are you at saying what you need to say and knowing what you need to say and how to say it? Yeah. Right. I'll never forget when I got hired at DuPont Registry in their internet division to sell the ads on their online, DuPont Registry, they had the magazine. Yeah. So I did some work for them. And so and that's the person, by the way, that told me the $60 or 3 hours of talk time. But also, he wouldn't let me on the phones on the day one. I was jumping and chomping at the bit. I come to work and he's like, I want to get on the phone. It's like, no, you have to build your lead list first. I want you to take the entire week to build your lead list. And he taught me what to look for to build a targeted list. So I started doing that. And then I had to wait for him to go to lunch on Wednesday because I did it in 2.5 days. As soon as he left for lunch, I got on the phone and I closed my first and third call.
Nice.
But no, I'm deep into my sales experience that time.
Sure.
So I was really good at what I do early on, right? It might have taken. I remember I'm trying to think back my first sales. I still got a sale the first day, but it was at the end of the day, and it was a much shorter sales cycle and a much smaller product, right?
Yeah.
And maybe not as serious as a truckload of stuff and trusting somebody for that, right? But with that being said, is it doesn't have to take too long. What you have to do is you have to get really good at it. Within a week, you should be able to get some traction going. I would usually say within the first day, especially if you know what to say, you should be able to start being able to have some better conversations. But then you have to talk. Are your audience, are they going to have a CRM? Or are they going to have notes scattered everywhere, right? Are they going to have a CRM that key? Okay, I spoke to this person, I called, I logged the call, and I'm going to get a follow-up call for tomorrow or a second attempt for the next day or whatever. Are they going to do that, or are they just going to have little sticky notes everywhere? You're not going to have as much success, right?
Yeah.
So if you know what to say and you work to sharpen your skills and you build your lead list right, and you put the time and effort in, you should be getting some pretty good results within the first week.
That's awesome. Michael, you gave me and this audience an incredible nugget. How do people reach out to you? How do people find you? What's the best way to talk?
Best way is salesbuzz.com. Everything's on the website there. You can sign up for free newsletter tips, cold calling tips, warm calling tips, things of that nature that goes out every Tuesday. Of course, if you're interested in the course, you can try a free demo there as well. Sign up to take the free course first. And if you like that, depending on I have pricing from 1 to unlimited. So yeah, pricing starts at, I think at this point right now, like $500 for somebody to go through our course as an individual. That could change in the future depending on when this comes out. But right now, that's what a promo we're running.
That's awesome. Well, Michael, thank you for being on. Thank you for the value. I loved every bit of it, and we'll be in touch. I wish you the best.
All right, sounds great. Thanks.